Welcome to the Enlighten Up podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Enlighten Up podcast. Today's guest is the kind of man who makes you wonder if the universe got bored one day and said, let's see what happens when we give one human all the plot twists. Dr. Josh McConkey isn't just a board-certified emergency physician. He's an Air Force Reserve colonel, a crisis medicine commander, a national security insider, and the guy you absolutely want in the room when everything is going to hell. And just when you think his life couldn't get any more cinematic, he loses $5 million to a corrupt business partner, gets back up, keeps serving, and then the universe hands him a cosmic refund in the form of a lottery win. So here's the plot twist, though. He didn't just buy a yacht with that money. He did something very profoundly in service to humanity. So we're going to jump right into it. Josh, welcome to the show. So good to have you here.
Oh, thank you very much. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we've got a lot to dive into in this episode. And so before we really kind of jump into it, where are you at right now in life compared to where your story really begins? Like, what's your perspective on life and the blessings and the challenges that come with it?
Well, right now I've got a wife and 3 kids. We're deeply immersed in school and sports, basketball, volleyball, all those fun things. And, just being a father, I've certainly learned a lot over the last several years. I learned the hard way that you can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do and how you react to that. So, losing $5 million was absolutely brutal. I came from nothing. My dad's a railroader. My grandfather and great grandfather are railroaders. So I was the first McConkey to go to college, and was very proud of a successful business that we built. Unfortunately, our CEO was just a bad guy, and I wasn't going to follow along with that. So he punished me, and I kind of learned the hard way. But I'm not going to compromise my integrity or who I am. So the lottery win was a pretty sweet.
Yeah,
That
well,
was a
okay.
pretty sweet plot twist. I'll tell you
It
that.
sounds like it. So, I mean, you have clearly been immersed in disastrous situations. So, how did you end up getting into that line of work? What drew you towards it?
So I was always the math and science nerd.
Okay.
And my stepmom growing up was a nurse, and she would tell me all the crazy stuff that she's seeing in the emergency departments and, in Omaha, Nebraska when she was a student. I grew up in a very rural small town, like I said, a railroad town. And just those types of stories just fascinated me. I enjoyed math and science, and then I'm a big military history buff as well. So I've been able to kind of put those two together with emergency medicine and kind of the excitement and that trauma with a military career, and have done a lot of wild and crazy things over 23 years. So I've been very blessed.
So, what was it like when you first went over? Because it looks like you served in the Middle East. Is that correct?
I did, yes. It was part of Operation Iraqi Freedoms. So, if people remember, in 2007, this is when President Bush stepped up and said, "You know what? We're gonna have the surge. We're gonna throw in 10,000 troops." And yeah, I was one of those troops. And literally, the day we got there, they shot down one of our helicopters, and there was a span of about 2 weeks where they shot down 8 helicopters. The Iranians had given some acoustic tracking software, so they were just knocking down helicopters, and I was
What
part of
was
that.
what was
So,
that like on the ground then for you guys?
well, it was extremely scary. So growing up in rural Nebraska, pretty sheltered, and I had some obviously some military training, and in the emergency department, it's all kinds of shootings and stabbings and crazy stuff all the time. But when you're the one being being shot at and on those helicopters, it gets real very quickly. So it took a while to adjust. Like you change your entire kind of mindset. It's really that fight or flight response that people in traumatic situations find themselves dealing with. I was thrust into that very quickly, day number one. So it was pretty scary.
Where, because I mean, to be thrust right into absolute chaos right from the jump, um, where do you think you were able to build up the kind of resilience to handle that kind of load right from the jump with no, like, I mean, obviously you have the training and everything, but from day one for that to happen, was there anyone in your family or in growing up that really kind of prepared you for that or taught you how to
Yeah,
navigate life in that way?
that's what I call the weight behind the spear. So for me, it was family, in particular, my cousin Zach. So he
Okay.
was a special forces operator, 18 Delta. He'd done all kinds of crazy things. And I was in a little bit of a panic over the first 2 weeks because I just had no idea how to adjust. I mean, I knew the mission that I was supposed to do, but when you come to grips with, I think I'm going to die here, it's pretty crazy. And so I called him up and he said, "Hey, listen, like you're in it now. So you could cry about it, or you could just saddle up and have an awesome adrenaline rush. And if you go down, right, I'm flying in medevac helicopters. So if we get shot down, we're flied out into the face of death to rescue some men and women that are putting their lives on the line for the country." And he said, "That's a pretty cool way to go, man." And it took a while to adjust to that, but once you get over that fear of dying, it's not that I was suicidal or anything. I'm probably going to die. I just don't care anymore. And then you just focus on what needs to get done. So between that and a strong faith, our chaplain in Iraq was Jim Higgins, and just amazing individual. So those two things right there were what I leaned on, because without that, I don't think I could have survived that mentally.
Was there anything that he was saying to you, the chaplain, that really stood out that you remember to this day that kind of helped you get through some of the very um, uncertain moments of?
Yes. Just putting your faith in God, and He's
Mm-hmm.
not going to put you in situations that you can't handle. And certainly, if you're in one of those situations that you're just not going to survive, then yeah, he's going to take you to a better place. So just having faith that you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, just taking care of men and women, putting their lives on the line for the country. So it was it was a huge change. It just was not something I was ready for. But you just find yourselves in those situations, and then, boy, if people remember, these were the times where they would shoot down the helicopters, and then they would try to capture somebody alive, and then crazy stuff like trying to cut their heads off on TV so the family can watch, and just some pretty evil type things. So
Yeah.
being there and being part of that, I paid attention during SEER training, that it's like the avoiding being captured, resistance, those types of things. But they had another crash course in Iraq that I paid a lot more attention on that one because it became very real. So yeah, just crazy stuff.
So when you came home from that, how were you different?
Ooh. For me, I had a hard time adjusting coming back. I think a lot of combat veterans really do, because when to get into that battle mindset, it's live or die. Everyone has that survival instinct.
Mm-hmm.
But those survival skills and the way that you mentally cope doesn't necessarily translate when you come back home, back in just normal civilian life where people don't understand what you've been through or what you saw. It's very, very difficult. So a lot of veterans have a really hard time coming back home. And I'll give one story.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when you're flying these medevac missions and you're taking care of just true heroes. So you'll pick up an individual, he took an IED, missing two limbs, bleeding out, I mean, near death. And this guy just wants to know, hey, is my buddy okay? And is my junk still there? Right, right, his genitalia. Because for a dude, that's a big deal. So when
Yeah.
Okay, so that was his two questions.
Hmm.
And his pain scale is 5 out of 10, and this guy could very likely die. Well, then 2 weeks after that, I'm back in the emergency department in a suburban ER. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're running a pediatric code. And it's a baby, it's an infant. And, you know, it's the worst case scenario, nightmare scenario for parents. The baby doesn't make it. And so I have to talk with the family, me and the nursing staff. We're crying. It's like, hey, I'm sorry, your baby's dead, right? Horrible. I walk out of the room, and this mother and her 14-year-old son are just standing at the doorway, just yelling and screaming at us. We've been waiting for an hour. Like, well, okay, listen, we just ran a pediatric code and the baby didn't make it. And so we need a little bit of time. And she said, I don't care. We were here first. And I snapped. I lost it. I started screaming at her. I threw her out of the emergency department. She's like, you can't do that. I called security. Get her out of my ER right now. And I just realized I don't think I was ready to be back in civilian life yet. And I had met my now wife, Elsa, and she recognized that. She's just a wonderful, kind, sweet person. She was an elementary school art teacher.
Mm.
Just everything is sunshine and rainbows, and I'm kind of pissed off, grizzled combat veteran. So it's a very nice combination. And she said, you know what? Let's get out of here. And so she had spent time with the Peace Corps and had traveled. So we moved to New Zealand and just chilled out and relaxed. I played soccer at Rotorua United. I worked in a little emergency department in Rotorua. And, just the mental healing and getting my head straight, it was hard to be back in the United States right after that. I think they probably could have done a better job at transitioning for us for the
Yeah.
Guard and Reserves. You're literally in combat one day, and less than 2 weeks later, I'm just like back on the civilian job, like everything's fine. And
Yeah.
I don't think that was very helpful.
I think these days, just in I think the last few years, mental health has become a very important conversation, especially, I mean, globally it's important, but I think here in the States it's become
Sure.
drastically in your face about how many people are actually suffering from the effects of the stress that people are undergoing mentally. So many different challenges, especially after 2020 and everything that came with that,
Oh,
and
like
and
COVID,
and
what a disaster that was. That
yeah, all
was
the
horrible for
different,
mental health.
yeah. And it's just there's just it seems like there's so much trying to push people into very deep polarization, which is not healthy for the mind. And so I think absolutely for the military, above all things, there should be some form of mental assistance in transition. I think you guys are looked at more as like just a physical kind of warrior, but like your strongest part of you is your mind. I think that's what is so important, and keeping that in healthy and intact, and it's the bare minimum as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's such great points to raise there because you realize, and I'm an emergency doctor, so I see mental health crises all the time.
Hmm.
And everybody has a breaking point. It doesn't matter what you do, what your job is, like how tough you think you are, everyone has a different skill set. Everyone has kind of a different threshold at which, that stress will really get to them. But I worked with special operations, and you look at these people are supposed to be the toughest on planet Earth, mentally and physically. So even in special operations, they still have suicides in those populations. So like no one's immune from this. Even the
Hmm.
toughest, baddest, like Rambo special operator out there, everybody has a breaking point, and that's why it's so important to develop that weight behind your spear. The best resource that we have in this country, it's our people. It's teachers, coaches, families, and volunteers. Those are the people that make that biggest difference. Like even in those special operators, that's what gives them the confidence to do the amazing things that they do. And that's everybody. So, being the weight behind someone else or something that matters for you, and then having those people behind you, those are really important.
Before we get more into this concept of the weight behind the spear, you know, it I don't know what's really kind of happening at this moment in time, but it seems like even just in the last few months, from what I've observed, in my own life, people around me, friends, family, clients, people in my audience, sharing stuff in the comment section. Seems like people are very much being challenged in not just small ways. Like there seems to be very big life challenges that are make or break kind of points. Like it's like you've got to choose differently. Something has to change. Like that is like the bare minimum. And, I've had a lot of different people coming, like finding out major health crisis issues, financial strife like never before. All these different things. I recently just lost a friend who committed suicide, unfortunately, just last week. And it begs the question of what are we able to do? How do we navigate when life is getting really, really difficult? And perhaps you don't have the right support system around or don't know how to lean on your support system if you do have one. For you, you said everyone has their breaking point. What was your big breaking point and how did you overcome that?
So for me, when I did the flight physical on the crew that was shot down, so I literally had been there for like less than 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened is the helicopter they're flying low because the lower profile you have, the less visibility for them to try to shoot you down. But they sawed off the tail rotor, so it kind of went into a deadly spin. But they were low enough that they actually rolled down a sandbank, which absorbed a lot of the energy, so they survived.
Okay.
And a quick reaction force got to them very quickly. And you could so there was this old like chief warrant officer that was flying along with his first lieutenant. And the first lieutenant was just his eyes are just wide as saucers, like, holy cow, what did I get myself into? And I'm a very young captain, flight surgeon straight out of residency, basically, maybe a little bit less than a year. And you're just like, wow, I can't believe these guys survived, number one. And then like I'm flying medevac missions with these guys. So that means this could be me. And that just kind of breaking point where I don't think most people willingly put themselves in situations where they could get, killed on a daily basis. Your military, your first responders, police, firefighters, there's so many jobs out there that do require that. And although I was an emergency doctor and I dealt with life and death situations every day for years and make these, life changing decisions, having myself in that situation was very unique. And so, like I said, with my faith and my cousin Zach, that the first 2 weeks, I was a little bit depressed. I was, tearful. I was writing home to the family and just, letting them know, like, hey, it's it's every bit as bad here as I thought it was going to be. It's actually quite a lot worse than I thought it was going to
Mm-hmm.
be. But I'm here because I want to. I want to take care of these men and women. And if something happens to me, I'm doing exactly what I want to do. And then just coming to grips with that and articulating that to your family, which is always hard. And I'm lucky to be alive. I wake up every single day just happy I'm alive, I tell you.
I think faith is one of the most important and critical components to being able to move out of crisis, any kind of crisis. And, if you don't have a connection to faith, whether that's God, your own religion, the universe, whatever it is that's bigger than you, that higher power, I think it's very difficult to navigate what lies ahead and what you're up against
Mhm.
because there's something very restorative, but also builds a will within inside of you that I don't think can come from anywhere else but that connection from within. And so for you, were there any conversations that you were perhaps having with God at through those times that you could maybe share with the audience that might be helpful to them when facing such things?
Well, I'll tell you the most serious conversation, I certainly had with God, my chaplain, and then one of my colleagues, Joe Kelly, was when we sat down and we're doing the flying and kind of had to make those decisions on if we do get shot down, how aggressive are we going to be here? Are we going to just fire off as many rounds as we can and take as many of them out as possible, or do you save some for yourself? Because the thought of, you know, being held on TV, they were doing all kinds of evil things, but like for my family to see something like that, and I mean, they literally had cut some people's heads off and recorded it to air for family and things, which is horrible. But I don't think I could quite live with something like that. And so, you know, you have those, you pray on that, like, do I have the guts to put a bullet in my own head or try to tough it out and survive and see what happens? But I didn't have any children. So, for me, it was probably a little bit easier decision than Joe had three girls. He's like, Josh,
Mm.
I gotta stay alive, man. Like whatever it takes. I mean, those are crazy discussions, but when they're real discussions, like, hey, we're flying today. You can take yourself out if it gets close to that point, or should we just keep fighting? I mean, those are insane conversations to have with people, but that's what we were having to discuss. So, uh, fortunately, we made it, and I'm here today and got three kids. But wow, that was pretty surreal.
Well, I'm glad you both made it, and
Yeah,
thank you very much for your service. When you're leaving that and you've gone through all of that and you're back in civilization, what was the how did you meet your business partner? What was the birth of that business and coming together with the business partner who later screwed you over $5 million?
yeah.
dollars?
Yeah, so this was there were two residency classmates, and one of them, so he's actually the one that introduced me to my wife. So,
Oh, okay. So that
when
was
when you
one
when you,
blessing.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So when you look at things, would I pay $5 million to meet my wife? Like 100%. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. She's an amazing mother, and just she's my favorite human being on planet Earth. So there's no amount I would have paid $1 billion. So at the end of the day, even though he really screwed me over and stole a bunch of money, he introduced me to my wife. So
Okay.
his girlfriend at the time and my wife taught together at a private school down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And when I got back from Iraq, I was kind of struggling, looking for something different. I was working in Omaha, Nebraska, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come down to Florida, hang out with me for a little bit? I mean, you can do some work down here as well." And so I had flown down there and then kind of hooked us up on a blind date, went out to eat and met Elsa. And wow, just such a wonderful, I mean, especially things a little bit dark for me, making that adjustment. And she was just elementary school art teacher, had traveled the world, spent time in the Peace Corps, was just always like happy and smiling, and just a wonderful soul. Like
Sweet
anybody that knows
energy.
Elsa, yeah,
Hmm.
anybody that knows Elsa, like she works in their kids' school now as an administrator and was teaching as well. Everybody loves her. She's always, just the life of the party, but very genuine.
Mm.
And so, met her there, and then after about a couple of years, he had been exploring other business opportunities, and we ended up moving to Austin, Texas, together. And there were two other residency classmates, and then the CEO was kind of the super evil one that just did all kinds of, man. That guy was something else, just violating Medicare law and embezzling money. And like, there's these self referral laws for healthcare. Like, you can't refer people in a business that you own, especially if there's any Medicare or Medicaid involved in that. You can't self-refer them to other businesses that you own. There's laws against that, and
Okay. Yeah.
he was just violating all of it. But that boy, you see how money changes people. So when the business is doing well and you're making millions of dollars, I mean almost a seven-figure income. Um, I didn't let it change me, but unfortunately, the other individuals just were going to sacrifice everything, their morals, their integrity to get that money. And I actually got the FBI involved, and there were some bribes. So initially there was a bribe of $3.4 million for me to just keep my mouth shut and walk away,
Really?
sign a non-disclosure agreement. And then there was a little canned speech, just some ridiculous little speech about I'm stepping away from the business. I'm going to spend more time with family and just walk off into the sunset with $3.4 million. Now, I know now that this individual had done that at several of the businesses. He'd been sued in Arizona, Louisiana, and another facility in Round Rock, Texas. And he's just kind of a nasty individual, no integrity at all. But so he found the one guy that would turn down $3.4 million, and he was pissed. So he went
What was that
berserk.
conversation? You don't have to obviously say exact
Yeah.
details, but what was the conversation like, um, in a sense of his expression when were you like right out of the gate, absolutely not, or
Well, so we really tried to mediate things,
mm-hmm.
and I initially had a conversation. So what brought all this to a head was I'm in the Air Force Reserves. I'm a colonel. I have a security clearance, and I had applied for a national security position on the National Security Council for emergency management. So I'm EMS Fellowship Board certified. That's all the disaster management, like FEMA and National Disaster Medical System, all those types of things. So it was a really cool opportunity. You have to have a top secret clearance. And I knew that that business stuff was not going to be okay with that. So I approached him initially. He was like, "Hey, I can't be part of this, man. You got to knock this off." And so then that's when he first offered the bribe. But I'm a colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Like I will not sacrifice my integrity for a penny. And so that's when things got nasty. So he tried to bankrupt the company. He like literally was refusing to pay bills. I was having to pay from my own personal account, but this individual had majority ownership in the business. So in the state of Texas, if you're the majority shareholder, you can do absolutely anything you want. Anything,
Oh, really?
like anything, until you can get it to trial. So if you're a majority shareholder, you can do so. He starved us out. He refused to make any distributions from the business while all the legal bills were racking up. So I spent like literally $250,000 in legal bills in less than a year. And so we filed a lawsuit to prevent him from bankrupting the company. But then COVID hit. So
Oh.
it's just horrible timing. So we were just completely screwed because we couldn't get a court date. So everything was frozen in the courts. We got the initial TRO, which is a temporary restraining order. And then COVID just destroyed it. And he just ran wild and just destroyed everything, which was crazy because like he owned it, but his whole plan was to he owned like the physical building. So it was really just an operating company. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at it as like kind of just the shell. So he was just going to bankrupt it and destroy it and then start over again without us. It was
Oh,
really what he was planning on doing. I mean,
okay.
he's kind of one of these evil maniacal geniuses.
Is that kind of
And
what his MO was? Like that's what he would do with
yes.
past businesses
Yeah,
and
that's what he had done with some other businesses. And one of the businesses, he had actually there was all these sexual harassment allegations and all kinds of crazy stuff. And so what the first thing we found was that we had $90,000 in legal bills for our business that we knew nothing about.
oh.
And and the accountant spilled the beans accidentally. We said, "Hey man, what's this $90,000?" He's like, "Oh, this is the blah 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 case." I'm like, what the hell is that? And so we looked it up, and it's literally this whole lawsuit with sexual harassment allegations that he was writing off his legal expenses through our business, a completely separate business. And so that, and then at one point he just straight up stole $650,000 just for back management, and the judge made him put it back. But just all kinds of crazy things. Just an evil individual, and then um, at the end of the day, he kind of everyone just turned against me, and they just took $5 million, and he actually made threats against the family. So I had actually moved to Australia because I got the FBI involved, and they were tied up with COVID as well. And they weren't going to press any charges because he hadn't done anything yet. So, I mean, he already made the threats like, "Hey, be careful. We know some really dangerous people," and sent a goon from Louisiana over to try to scare me and stuff. But just a bizarre situation, and you learn like, hey, I can't control crazy. I can't
Yeah.
control other people, but
Mm-hmm.
I can damn sure control how I respond to that, and I will not compromise my integrity for a penny. He found the one dude on planet Earth that wouldn't take $3.4 million, and it pissed him off. And so he just went on an absolute tirade. So we had to leave because I was genuinely concerned he was going to do something dangerous. I mean, he was already willing to give me $3.4 million, so he
Yeah.
was obviously concerned about all the allegations and everything. So just moved to Australia, and then the whole COVID debacle, and eventually we just moved back to North Carolina and
Okay.
just lost all that.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the lottery ticket.
Yeah, yeah,
When where
yeah.
did that happen? That happen in Australia? Did that happen here? Where
So
did that?
there's right here in North Carolina. So you roll the clock forward 4 years. and, just taking care of your family, doing the right thing, and moved back to North Carolina, which we were all happy there anyway. So at the end of the day, probably moving to Texas and starting that business wasn't the best family decision, but we
Mm.
certainly learned a lot,
Yeah.
and it gave me some
Well,
awesome
everything
stories.
is preparing you for what's
Yeah.
next.
Oh yeah, yeah. It gave me some amazing stories for the book, and some lessons on leadership and what not to do. So 4 years later, I'm taking Gabriel to gymnastics, and right there in that same complex is a gas station, and so I drop him off at gymnastics. I go fill up the car. And I just look up the window, and I think most gas stations you can see whatever the jackpot's getting to. And like I said, I'm a math and science nerd, so I only play the Cash Five lottery because the Powerball and Mega Ball, all that stuff is just there's no way it's impossible. But statistically, if you just five balls is easier than six balls. So I played the Cash Five lottery, and it had got up to $1.5 million, which was really impressive because it was basically a daily draw. And so I went online, I had got some tickets on that Wednesday night, didn't win, and I just rolled them forward to Thursday night and really not paying much attention to it because we're doing family stuff. It's crazy. Get your homework done. Did you do the cat litter? I mean, we're just doing, I got three kids.
Were you
So,
someone who played the lottery often or?
just occasionally,
Okay.
I've got some of my favorite numbers of just like kids' birthdays. And then another one is the 1995 Seattle Mariners, like the
Hmm.
baseball players, Ken Griffey Jr., Joey Cora, just those teams. I would just play those numbers, like just intermittently, maybe a couple times a year.
Okay.
And so Friday morning, we're trying to get all the kids up. They, take out the garbage. Did you make your lunch? It's chaotic. It's 6:30 in the morning, and I just get a random email, and I thought it was spam. So it literally says, like, you won the lottery. We need your social security number. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Just total scam. And did not click on the email because I'm not a total idiot, but I logged in online on the online account, and it was legit, and it's on the screen is it's you won the jackpot. And I called my wife over. I'm like, holy cow, like Elsa, you gotta check this out. And she's looking at the screen. She's like, that's not real, is it? I'm like, holy, I don't know. I think it is. It looks pretty legit. And so I just filled it out online there. And they sent another email about an hour later, and they're saying, hey, drive into Raleigh, pick up your check. And it didn't really hit me until I got to the lottery facility. And it's all locked up, and there's bulletproof glass all over it. And I walked to the front desk, and they're like, "You got to fill out this piece of paper." I'm like, I'm filling out the paper, and then she gets on a little. There's like a red bat phone behind her, and she's like, "Hey, the online lottery winner's here." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! Is this real? Like this is real?" Like, oh my. So they badge you through one door, and then they badge you through another security door. And there's a lottery room, and it's got the wall all painted up with like North Carolina Educational Lottery, but it's kind of a empty room, and there's just a table. She's like, just kind of sit here. This phone will ring in 10 minutes. Like, this phone's gonna ring. What? Like it's a Mission Impossible or like Get
Yeah.
Smart if you watched that TV show when you were a kid or something. So I'm just sitting there, and then the phone rings. They ask you all the questions, just do you own a gas station? Do you have a family member that owns a gas station? Just trying to make sure you didn't cheat at anything, which I certainly don't. And then they just come in with a gigantic cartoon check and snap a bunch of pictures, and it was pretty crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. So 4 years after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. And just so you lose that much money. I mean, he tried to bankrupt me, just an evil guy. I stuck to my guns and just did the right thing. And even though I got massively screwed over in that one, I kind of felt like that was just a little divine intervention, a little karma
Mm-hmm.
coming to my
Mm-hmm.
way. And I've been very fortunate because with that money, I've started a nonprofit organization. I've got the book out, The Be the Weight Behind the Spear, and now I've got a children's book that I just released last weekend, as a matter of fact. But
Yeah.
just trying
So
things that we can help make the world a better place and teach.
so let's kind of talk about that because, people winning the lottery, especially after going through everything that you've gone through, um, to take that and invest it in helping others, is, I don't think, most people's first instinct. So walk me through, like, you've received the money and then also what birthed this foundation, and also the book? Like, where did it all where was it all stirring within your own heart to do that?
Well, I think if you go all the way back to the time in Iraq, where, you just realized that, like, it's a combat zone, people are dying. Nobody cares how big your house is. Nobody cares how much money you make. Nobody cares what kind of car you drive. Like, none of that matters. It's life or death. And when I walked out of that, I just came from a different mindset of where I don't care about money. I'm not going to make life decisions based on money. Is it making a difference? Am I doing the right thing? Am I taking care of family? That kind of was who I am, or who I was after Iraq. Before Iraq, love the money, great. I mean, you're just money, money, money. I just don't care about that anymore. So having that windfall, that lottery win, I didn't look at it as, gosh, look at all this money. It's like, man, what can we do positive with this money? So as an emergency physician and as a military commander, you see, gosh, an entire generation. So like the whole politics of it, there's no blame game, but the fact is there was a whole generation of Americans, I call them the COVID generation, that last half of Gen Z, that during COVID, the most critical years in their development, they were shut out of school, shut
Hmm.
out of churches, just completely isolated from their communities. And they were already struggling. There was already mental health issues just in this younger generation because of social media and just it's a different world than when I grew up.
Hmm.
So I see that as a military commander, they struggle. They don't have the leadership skills, they don't have the resiliency, they quit at a moment's notice, and I was very concerned. And then as a military commander, you know, they come to me in the ER and I see the anxiety and the depression and then a sky high rising suicide rate. And what can we do about this? Because I can go to work every day and just do the same thing over and over and over. I save some, I can't save some. Like, the book was really my prescription to address that problem. Some, regardless of how divided this country is, right? It's the most divided generationally and politically that I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
we can all agree that we need this next generation to be successful.
Hmm.
So this book is my call to action for people to engage their communities, teach, coach, volunteer, be a mentor, because what you do matters. And so with the book and then the nonprofit organization, I started that after Hurricane Helene. I wiped out Western North Carolina. So that was September of last year.
Hmm.
Just biblical level destruction and that
Yeah.
flooding and loss of life, and just complete destruction. So we started the nonprofit organization after that, and we raised money. We were able to make contributions. We got partnered up with Samaritan's Purse, which is a great organization that does rescue work and you know feeding the starving, and they've done so much all around the globe. So I was really proud to be a part of that. And then the children's book is just that next step of the earlier we get involved, the better. So when I get these kids at 20 years old, like 18, 20 years old, it's really hard to build those skills, right? I got to yell at them a lot. There's push-ups and it's the military, right?
Yeah.
How about we get involved when they're 3 years old or five
Yeah.
years old? So the children's book is really, like 4 to 9 years old. So early and middle childhood readers, we just instill those skills and those leadership develop those leadership skills early on. And I was able to partner with just a world-renowned Disney illustrator, just Yakovetic. And he's fantastic. I got to meet him in person for the first time this weekend in Charlotte at the Southern Christmas Show, where we unveiled the book. And it's making a big difference. People absolutely loved it. And yeah, it's quite proud.
Well, you should be. This is wonderful, and I think especially during times where there is so much division, to see someone with such a deeply compassionate and humane heart to continue service in, I think, a way that for civilians is very much needed. Of course, protecting the country that you live in is very, very important, but also the borders of the mind are just as important because, like you said, the mind is our future for a lot of these younger individuals. And so, before we kind of go in, there's a lot of questions I have for you
Yeah,
around this
yeah.
because I'm really
We
fascinated.
need these kids to be successful, right? Because
Yeah.
that's our future. Like, I want to retire at some point. I got to hand we both, right? Got to hand
You
the
want to
keys
pass
over
the
to these
baton.
kids. Yeah. They need to be ready. So
Yeah.
that's
So,
survival.
walk me through the concept of the weight behind the spear. Like that concept and also where it came from for you and why you chose that name.
So, being in the military and having worked with special operations, so I worked with some special forces, combat search and rescue. So these are the PJs. These individuals jump out of helicopters and planes into the most dangerous environments on planet Earth, and they rescue people that are in bad spots. So pilots, people stranded on mountaintops. I mean, just really, really dangerous things. So one of the members of my team had actually been part of the Thai cave rescue in 2018. So that Thai soccer team that was trapped in the caves right during that rainy season in 2018, like he was part of that dive team, and it was the stories were amazing. And so you just realize that these individuals, like when you look at special forces, that's the tip of the spear. They all have someone in their life, like teachers, coaches, volunteers, families, that gave them the confidence to do what they do because
Mm.
they're freaks of nature. Like mentally and physically, they're just amazing individuals. So you try to find a common theme there. So it's the weight behind their spear. Because without the people and the teachers and coaches all around you, your family, it's nothing. Like that spear, it's just a pointy stick. It's the weight behind the spear that makes it so powerful. And so taking that message, that was my leadership message. I'm a military commander. So I had on the bottom of my challenge coin, gravitate hastum, Latin, gravity of the spear. And so when I wrote the book, Be the Weight Behind the Spear, that's kind of really what I'm about as a military leader and a community leader. And it was very well received. I got a Pulitzer Prize nomination. I won several book awards, Nonfiction Writers Association, the Independent Press Award, and just with some of the other things we've got, even got a Telly Award, the 2025 Telly Award for one of the podcast episodes just talking about that. So, I'm able to do some very positive things with it.
Hmm. No, I love that. I completely agree. This life is not meant to be done alone.
Yeah.
And when
Life is a team sport.
life
It's a
is
team sport.
absolutely a team sport. And when you're working with the youth, specifically first Gen Z, what was your experience with what they were needing most from you, or like what they were lacking and what they needed? What was it specifically that you found that was super helpful to them?
So when you look at the history of mankind, like we're a very social species. Like it's storytelling and family and that culture for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And then this generation, this is really that iPhone, the iPad generation.
Mm.
So they are the first generation to have been born with the entirety of human knowledge at their fingertips, like on a telephone or iPad, since the moment they were born. And then the evolution of social media really has disrupted our kind of natural like cultural development as human beings because everything is now over screens, and they're seeing like these false representations of life where everybody on social media is super and awesome and famous and happy, and it's not real life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you couple that with them being raised with what I call the lawnmower parents. More parents, they're just some of the parenting differences where every kid was raised a winner. Everybody got a participation trophy, and they don't want them to make. They wouldn't let them make mistakes. They mowed down every obstacle in their kid's path, and so
Mm.
it just became a perfect storm of zero resiliency, their ability to just overcome some of the most simplest things, and then I mean their perception is the reality. I mean, that's what they were raised with. That's all they know. And then this whole social media world, it hasn't been good for their mental health. And so as a result, and as a physician, this is what I deal with every day, but just huge mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and suicide. And we have a lot of work to do. This is a problem we all own, all the adults in society, teachers, coaches, families, everybody. And so just this whole book is just about realizing the power that you have as an individual and that you make a difference and that, get involved. Everyone's got different gifts. Get out there.
So what were did any of the individuals from that Gen Z come to you and share what it meant for them or how it was how it served them to approach their life differently, overcome challenges? Was there any perspectives that they really appreciated and maybe hadn't been privy to or aware of or just truly needed?
Yeah, so that's probably the thing I'm most proud of anything that I've done is my 3 years as a commander. So you've got 100 men and women that you're responsible for and taking care of and just trying to develop them as leaders,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere from 18 to 30 year olds.
Mm-hmm.
And the younger, just the difference in just being involved and everything, all the communication is through just like social media and emails, but when you make a fact of like just face-to-face interaction, getting out there, talking with them, keeping an open door. There were several of them. I mean, I can think of probably 3 or 4 individuals where I had multiple conversations about their life issues and the problems and what they were going through with, from divorces to like a death of one of their children to so some really crazy stories. One of them was even involved in a shooting out in DC, in a road rage incident, and just I think that style of leadership of just being present and the face-to-face interactions, and that's what's going to save this generation. Like, there's no amount of TikTok videos or YouTube shorts that are going to help develop these skills. It has to be face-to-face, and
I
that's why. Go ahead.
Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah, no. Just and that's why getting involved as early as possible
Mm-hmm.
and teaching and coaching and volunteering, just whatever it is, whatever skill you have to give, just get out there and be part of your community. I coached t-ball, I coached soccer when the kids were real little. I mean, just those face-to-face interactions is what this generation really needs.
I
And
completely agree with you. And I can actually see a resurgence after so many people gravitating towards online, especially with COVID hitting 2020 and everything moved to online out of necessity to continue forward. But there definitely has been, I can see, obviously, it's it's maybe more affordable, more convenient for people to just jump online to maybe attend certain events or whatever, to just be on virtually versus in person. But I can see the power and the resurgence of the need for more in person interaction, events, communities meeting together, things of that nature. Just even in my own work, all of my work was built. My business was built online. This one in particular started building it like 2018 ish, and everything I've been able to reach people far and wide, different countries, which has been an absolute blessing.
yeah,
But now being able to do some of the work, holding retreats and working with people like not just one to one, but in person, I've seen the dramatic benefits and changes that can occur in that manner, versus just online. There is absolutely something that is missing. It doesn't mean it doesn't also come with its own benefits, but if that's only where you reside, then obviously it starts to become an issue. And with these kids really growing up, like you said, in an environment where being in person starts to create stress, just normal human connection starts to create stress. I mean, I see it even in the dating world.
yeah,
People just they don't even want to talk on the phone. It has to be through text. Like, why are you calling me? And it's like not even knowing how to use the voice over a phone conversation, never mind in person. And so even even my boyfriend now, we kind of joke about, before we met, he was on a date. No, he wasn't even on a date. He was just sitting at a bar, and there was a girl beside him, and they were just talking, and an hour and a half had gone by, and he just thought, wow, we've just had a really good conversation, and he really enjoyed her company, and he's like, hey, would you want to do this sometime again? I really enjoyed meeting you. And she just looked at him, she goes, well, are you on Bumble? How do we know we're a match? It was just so bizarre.
yeah.
So
Huh.
bizarre to even think, like, if the internet didn't match you, how do you know in your own heart connection, your human connection, if you're it blows my mind. And so I think it's absolutely crucial. So take me to now working with as young as 3-year-olds. What is the approach to building that leadership within a 3-year-old? What does that look like?
Well, for me, writing this book and just getting those basics. So just in story form. So just sitting down with kids and just talking about some of those leadership skills, putting others before yourself. A leader doesn't have to be the fastest and the strongest. Okay. A leader cares about other people, puts other people first, just those things like integrity, accountability, so that's we've got 8 books to go here. We got the first one down and 7 more to go, and it may turn into more. But just those very basic stories. And for me, I loved Mercer Meyer as a kid growing up. Did you ever read the Little Critter books?
No.
Oh, okay. So people out there that know Little Critter. So that was Mercer Meyer, and just wonderfully illustrated books with just some good stories.
Hmm.
And there's a little Easter egg in there, but there's like a spider on every page. So for me, when I was a really young kid, you kind of hold their attention and the engagement while you're reading the story with just the illustrations, and you're always looking for the little spider. What's he doing? Is he causing mischief? So Joe and I, we have a little squirrel that's in our story that's going to be going that's through each of those, and I'm sure we'll probably maybe have a different one or maybe the same squirrel and then the next book's coming up. But just that storytelling, and then that's mentoring, telling stories for my kids, just right at the dinner table, even at very young ages. So taking that time as a family to sit down at the dinner table, it's almost a foreign concept anymore because
I
everyone's
know.
busy and they're running all over the place. But just sit down, make the time, because you're telling your kids, it's like, this is important. I want to hear about your day, like what went well, what didn't go well, and could you have made some different choices that could have changed the outcome of the day.
Hmm.
Letting them go out there in the world and make some mistakes, not being that hovering helicopter or lawnmower parent. I mean, do it safely, right? I mean, don't let them don't let them make mistakes that can't be undone.
Yeah.
But just even from those very young ages, just letting them know that it's that time together with them matters, and let them articulate what went well and didn't go well, and then what can we do differently.
Yeah.
That's how they learn.
Basically, you're increasing the weight behind the sword through those moments.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
That's creating a tremendous weight behind their spear and helping them
Hmm.
develop into the leader that they're going to be. And that's just confidence, because the more leadership skills and tools that they have, that those resiliency skills, that's confidence, and that's success later in life.
Yeah. It's we watching. I mean, I'm not a parent, and so I hate to, put in some of my 2 cents sometimes because I
Oh
don't know
no.
exactly what it's like to be a parent. However, I have watched many of my friends and even, with some of my clients, this has been an issue. Um, where watching helicopter parents just not provide the space and time for their kid to be challenged, to figure it out for themselves. Um, to really take that time versus just always solving the problem for them or make finding a way to make it easier.
You're not helping them out.
Yeah.
You're just hurting them later in life. You got to let them get out there.
So, what would your advice be then to parents who maybe, because I get it. I also understand why this has happened. We've gone from a generation like look at my parents, boomers, right? And very hardened by war and had to grow up in like a very different mindset. And so everything was very tough and very, just hardened. And then, of course, we go to the opposite extreme, where parents don't want to raise their kids that way, but not realizing that there was some benefits to it. And how do you find the balance? So, what would your advice be to parents who have maybe found themselves in that situation or they're going to become parents and want to avoid it?
Yeah, just kind of find that happy medium, right? Um, Extremes of anything are generally not good.
Mm-hmm.
You swing to one side to the other side. Find that happy medium. It's going to be different for every family. But if you give your kid the basics of like, hey, listen, nobody owes you anything in life. The entitlement, the oh poor me, like that doesn't help anybody. So that like that victim mentality, you know, you get what you've earned. I mean, just period. Not everybody's a winner. We would like to be winners. I mean, winning is good, but it's not everything.
Mm-mm.
So, not everyone's a winner. There are losers. But that's not a bad thing. If you teach from losing, if you teach that that's how you learn from those mistakes so you don't make the same ones, or you learn to challenge yourself in other areas. Like losing doesn't have to be a bad thing. So you have to frame that, it's not just winning and losing. It's it's both. And you can learn from winning. Everyone loves to win, but we can't all be winners. So giving everybody the participation trophies and has been proven to not be good, you know. So just find that happy medium, and it's going to be different for every family. Just people's risk tolerances and
Hmm.
their own personal experience are going to change how they make decisions. But just those very basic things right there is it's a good place to start.
Yeah, and failures I have found in my own life, I guess you could call them perceived failures, because I've learned I've been more enriched with information that serves me better through my failures than I have actually through my successes. And I think my successes have meant more coming on the heels of certain failures. So it's I kind of have this belief, maybe I'm wrong, but the way I've kind of observed it is that if you know how to be happy in your failures, you absolutely know how to be happy in your success. But if you're always afraid of failure, if you believe that there's no happiness in the failures, then it's going to be a constant fear looming
Yeah.
over you that you're as soon as you lose your success, and it's just what do you do? And so understanding that that's not the definition, then and it's learning how to choose that state of being and your relationship with life just in general in those moments, those challenges, reshaping your relationship with that, I think is extremely important. And
Yeah.
I love your message today. I think it's really important, this idea of the weight behind the spear, because I myself have also found I've gone through the last couple of months have been very challenging, reaching a point where I know it's kind of one of those fork in the roads turning points in life that I'll look back and go, okay, I know exactly why I needed to go through that. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm starting to come out of it and starting to already have the gratitude for it. But I wouldn't have been able to move through it without the support system that I have behind me, my boyfriend, my friends, my family, all of that. And I think it's really important that you have a really strong support system. It doesn't need to be huge, it just needs to be strong. And I think there's a difference between the quality versus the quantity of
Yeah.
who you surround yourself with,
Quality.
and making sure that, if you just have a few solid people around you that can help be that weight behind your spear, I think is very, it's crucial, it's critical, it's necessary. And also being able to start to come out on the other side now of it, recognizing how important there's certain things that maybe you've lost touch with or forgot about, that are your strengths and you maybe haven't been using them. Like one of the things that I realized was I have not been utilizing one of my God given gifts to the capacity that it can be used. And why? Why haven't I been doing it? Why have I been leaning on things that aren't truly as important or can really provide the same kind of impact in my life? And again, building up that connection to the creator, my relationship with the creator, and understanding how that is really truly the CEO of my life, and guiding me through everything. So I think this is a beautifully timed episode to come out, especially the week leading into Thanksgiving, as your
Yeah. Here we
episode will
go.
air that week. And I
Yeah.
think this is a beautiful reminder of what to be grateful for, to lean on the people around you. So I'd like to give you this opportunity, Josh, to just share with my audience how they can get involved, well, they can find your book, all of those kinds of things.
Oh, thank you very much. So if you go to weightbehindthespear.com, so WEIGHT, weightbehindthespear.com, you can learn more about the book, more about the foundation, and our children's book series that we're launching here. Um, Social media is great as well, on X and Instagram. On Instagram, it's Josh McConkey, MD. And we're really excited about what we're doing and making a big difference.
I love it. I will leave all of the links for you guys in the show notes below, so it's very easy for you to find Josh and everything that he's offering. Thank you once again, Josh, for being on the show. And to my audience, I want to just send out all my gratitude for you going into this Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you are surrounded by loved ones, no matter if it's one or many. I hope that you have that support behind you. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks again for joining me for another show on the Enlighten Up podcast. I love you guys so much for all of your continued support. So remember to raise your vibe, find your tribe, and be open to the infinite possibilities held in the mysteries that surround us all. Thanks again for sharing the show with your family and friends. And if you're new to the show and you need to find out more information about me, please head on over to my website, NicoleFrolick.com, where you can join my newsletter. And please follow me on Instagram, Telegram, and YouTube. Keep your light bright, and I'll see you next week.